Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Chloe Feng. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. A lucky escape for people in 4 vehicles damaged by a falling tree. The Hong Kong Marathon is cancelled, but the cross-harbour swim is still slated to take place. And a Chinese delegation is reportedly stopped from entering Westminster Hall as mourners wait up to 14 hours to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth. People in 4 vehicles, including a school bus, had a close shave when a giant tree collapsed in Homantin this morning. 3 people were slightly injured, Macy Mock reports.
Close to 8 a.m., a school bus and a car stopped at the traffic lights on Perth Street in Homantin. Seconds later, a 15-meter tall tree came crashing down, damaging them and 2 other vehicles. Video footage showed the school bus driver moving freely inside his vehicle and a woman getting out of a damaged car. 3 people were injured: the driver of the school bus, the bus nanny, and the driver of another car who reported a pain in his waist. As firefighters used an electric saw to cut the tree for removal, the damage to the school bus was clear. Only the driver and the bus nanny were inside at the time. The driver, who had a narrow escape, sustained a scratch on his left hand. He recalled seeing a black shadow before the tree collapsed with a loud noise. The bus nanny suffered scratches to her leg from shattered glass. She said the bus was on its way to pick up students in Whampoa before the accident. Former Chinese University School of Life Science professor Chiu Siu Wai suspects that the tree had a fungal infection. Part of Perth Street was closed to traffic this morning for police and firefighters to investigate the incident and clear the road. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The Hong Kong Marathon has been cancelled, but the cross-harbour swim will go ahead. The marathon had been scheduled for November 20th, but the Hong Kong Association of Athletics Affiliates, which organizes the event, said it has not yet received the green light from the government. As such, there might not be enough time for the runners to prepare. But the cross-harbour swim will take place as planned on October the 23rd. All 1,500 swimmers will have to present a negative PCR result of a test taken 48 hours before the event and must have a blue code in the Leave Home Safe app. Applications for the race open on Sunday and close next Friday. Security Chief Chris Tang says Hong Kong can strike a balance between reopening the border with the mainland and opening up to the rest of the world.
I think we can do it at the same time. On one hand, we try to open our border with overseas, and while we can have more communication of people between boundaries. Dynamic zero as a policy, but we are not saying that absolute zero. And in fact, when taking into account of dynamic zero, we have also to take into consideration of the livelihood issues of people and also the economic development.
You can watch the rest of our exclusive interview with Chris Tang tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. COVID has claimed the life of a 4-year-old boy, prompting health officials to appeal again to parents to vaccinate their children. New infections climbed today, with the Mid-Autumn Festival blamed for the increase. Macy Mock reports.
A 4-year-old boy who had 2 COVID jabs was confirmed to have contracted the virus on Tuesday and went to Tin Shui Wai Hospital. He was also suffering from shortness of breath, and he was sent to Tuen Mun Hospital for further treatment yesterday. But his condition worsened and he died this morning.
患有長期病患
Hospital Authority Chief Manager Sarah Ho said the boy had chronic illnesses and required intubation for feeding. The coroner will investigate the cause of death. Health officials meanwhile stepped up calls for children and elderly people to get vaccinated. Nearly half of those between 6 months and 4 years old have yet to receive a single dose of vaccine. And 29% of people over 80 years old have not been vaccinated. Newly reported COVID cases today jumped to 8,999, including 131 imported infections. The recent Mid-Autumn Festival was blamed for the rise. Another 322 infected patients were admitted to hospital, while there were 17 COVID-related deaths. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A diplomatic wrangle is brewing between London and Beijing after a Chinese delegation was reportedly stopped from viewing Queen Elizabeth's coffin. Speaking in Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said London should follow diplomatic protocols. She noted that foreign delegations invited for the funeral were taking part as a sign of respect for the Queen. Reports from London say the Speaker of the House of Commons stopped the Chinese delegation from entering Westminster Hall because Beijing sanctioned British lawmakers who criticized its human rights record. Mourners, meanwhile, have continued to file past Elizabeth's coffin on the second full day of her lying in state. Those joining the queue were told that it would take up to 14 hours before they can pay respects to the Queen, who died last Thursday at the age of 96. The line stretches at least 8 kilometers, and mourners have been warned that they will have to stand for several hours before they reach Westminster Hall to view the coffin. A state funeral for Elizabeth, who reigned for 70 years, will be held on Monday. President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, have discussed the Ukraine war during their meeting in the Uzbek city of Samarkand. Putin thanked Xi for his balanced approach to the conflict, which triggered the West to vilify Russia and impose sanctions. Sachin Ketvi reports.
The highly anticipated meeting between the leaders of the two friendly nations came at a time when both China and Russia have been denounced by the West. The talks in the Uzbek city of Samarkand were a strong signal of support from President Xi Jinping for his beleaguered Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. In their first face-to-face meeting since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, Xi pledged strong support for Moscow's core interests. For his part, Putin expressed gratitude to China for what he described as its balanced approach to the Ukrainian conflict. China had raised concerns about the current situation amid reports that Ukraine has been recapturing territory lost to Russia in the early days of the invasion. Putin said he understood China's concerns, but his foreign minister said Moscow and Beijing have no differences on foreign issues. The talks were a morale booster for Putin, who is facing growing international condemnation for attacking Ukraine. Xi left the discussions with the Russian leader's firm commitment to the One China policy in the wake of the controversial visit to Taiwan by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in August. Sachin Katvi, HKIBC.
Locally again, 2 men have appeared in court on a murder charge a day after a body was found in a village in Takulin. And the 2 men who pleaded guilty in a national security case will be sentenced after the trial of their co-defendant, media mogul Jimmy Lai. Jenny Slow reports.
Police beefed up security as a prison van took activist Andy Lee and paralegal Chan Ziwa to the High Court this morning. They had pleaded guilty earlier to conspiring to collude with foreign forces, but they will be sentenced only after the trial in December of co-defendant Jimmy Lai. The Court of Appeal has granted part of an application by police in the case of officers failing to display their identification numbers during the 2019 anti-government protests. The court allowed police and the Department of Justice to submit new affirmations from officers on the implementation of the call sign policy, saying it would probably have an important influence on the result of the case. But the court rejected additional evidence provided by the complaints against police office. Meanwhile, at Fanling Magistracy, 2 people were remanded until December after being charged with murder. The pair, aged 29 and 64, were arrested after the body of a 51-year-old man was found in a village in Takuling yesterday. And the case involving 7 defendants from the protest group Returning Valiant has been adjourned to next month. The district court heard mitigation from 3 defendants today after hearing from 3 others last week. The 7th defendant, Chris Chan, was in isolation and his mitigation was postponed. All 7 but 1 were remanded in custody until they appear in court again next month. Janice Low, HKIBC.
China's economy showed signs of recovery last month, with all main drivers beating market expectations following stimulus measures. But the property sector remains in a slump. Despite the resurgence of COVID in some key cities and an unprecedented heat wave, which led to an energy shortage, China's main economic indicators improved. Industrial production, retail sales, and fixed asset investment all beat market expectations last month. Industrial production, a gauge of activity in the manufacturing, mining, and utility sectors, surged 4.2% year-on-year in August, up from 3.8% growth in July. The most notable increase was in retail sales, which jumped 5.4% in August, double the rise in July. Fixed asset investment on items including infrastructure, property, and machinery edged up 5.8% in August.
主要指标出现积极变化。
National Bureau of Statistics spokesman Fu Linghui hailed the positive changes, saying they came despite a series of difficulties, including power cuts. But he noted that insufficient market demand restricted a stable recovery. Some economists warned about other headwinds.
We do have zero COVID policy continuing. That's the impact that has on private investment and particularly on household spending. And the other thing is, of course, we've got this ongoing real estate slump, which, as today's figures even showed, was a big drag on growth, on investment again.
Unemployment remains high at 5.3%, with the jobless rate for the 16 to 24 age group at an elevated level of 18.7%. Macau has begun considering bids for casino licenses, with 7 companies vying for the 6 slots. The applicants comprise the 6 current casino operators in the gaming hub, and a surprise late entry. Joining the race is Malaysian firm GMM, which runs the Genting Casino in its home country, as well as gaming houses in Singapore and Australia. Results will be announced before the present 20-year licenses expire at the end of the year. Now let's take a look at the market. The Hang Seng Index closed down 168 points. Top 10 active stocks: Tencent down $6.80, Tracker Found down 16 cents, and Alibaba down $1.30. Meituan down $3.50, AIA down 30 cents, Wuxi Bio down $2.30. Moving on to the forex trading against Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 7.81, British pound at 8.94, Australian dollar at 5.24. Moving on to the UK market, the London FTSE is currently down 11 points. On to the weather now. The hot streak will continue until early next week. It will be hazy tomorrow with a maximum temperature of 34 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Chloe Feng. Good night.